Hi everyone, I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and today I wanted to do a fun but sort of subtle dyeing experiment. Lately I've enjoyed creating some tonal semi-solid yarns by layering colors on top of one another. So maybe I'll kettle dye in one color, then another, then another. This is something that frequently happens in a yarn mop situation, but I've done this on purpose as well. And so I thought it would be fun to explore how layering two colors on top of each other in two separate instances of dyeing is different or similar to if I were to mix the two colors together in one pot and then dye the yarn. Now, these results depend a lot on the different types of dye that you use. If you're using food coloring, which can break wildly, versus if you're using acid dyes, there's some dyes that break, some that don't, which can all give you different results. Today we will be looking at acid dyes, and I'm going to pick two colors that I don't think break in any particular way, but depending on the results from this video, then I think we'll have to retry it with food coloring and some situations that do break, just so that way we can see how the results differ with different types of dyes. Today's video is sponsored by Stevie Alex. Thank you so much for sponsoring this episode of Dyepot Weekly. If you would like to learn how you as a viewer can sponsor an episode, get shoutouts and some yarn dyed in the video, you can find a link to the listing in the ChemKnits Creations Etsy shop in the video description and in the top right hand corner of the screen. The listing has been sold out frequently on Etsy, so if it's not currently available, feel free to message me on Etsy to talk about your idea, and yeah, I can talk to you about the availability. Today we are going to dye 400 grams of Knit Picks Swish DK yarn. This yarn is 100% superwash merino. I've dyed it a lot, and we'll be dyeing 200 grams in each of the circumstances. So 200 grams in situation A and 200 grams in situation B. Both cases will have the same total amount of dye on the yarn. It's just the layering and how we apply that dye is going to be slightly different. Technically, we're going to have a mixture of three colors today. We've got some Jacquard Bright Yellow, and then we also have a 1% dye stock of a combination of Deep Magenta and Saphire Blue that I did for another project. This is a pink and a yellow. We're going for some orange colors today. And, well, we'll see how well this turns out. If, when we first start mixing colors, we feel like we don't have enough of our yellow, I do have some Dharma Fluorescent Lemon on hand. In theory, I could go in and mix new dye stocks, but given that the kids are around and stuff, that's not something I can do at this moment, and I do want to film the video, so I am working with what I have at my disposal. I know our pink is very, very potent, so I do want to keep that in mind. But let's see how much of this yellow we have got. So that is a tablespoon into each color, and then I want to measure out, I've got about a little over 1 more tablespoon, but I am going to go rinse this out and dilute that remaining tablespoon of dye so I can split it between these two containers. Alright, and I'm going to take this mixture with that extra water and dissolve it, and split it between these two, trying to keep things as even as possible. And if I think I have a tiny bit of extra, I'm just going to set that aside and save it for some leave no dye behind. As far as experiments go, this is definitely not the purest. I added a 1/4 cup of water to these 2 cups just so that way I could dilute our pink a bit, just so that way it can help us visualize what we've got happening here. But I think I'm going to only add 1 tablespoon of color to each, and I'm measuring out everything right now so that way all of the mixing and the situations are as similar as absolutely possible. because if that yellow doesn't make an impact, we're gonna wanna do something else. So here is the combination, and it is looking much more, okay, that definitely shifted. Here's the pink, here's the red. I do think I want a tad bit more yellow. So I'm gonna go ahead and add, and it's not gonna be a lot. It's just gonna be 1 teaspoon or 5 milliliters of the Fluorescent Lemon. Okay, let's see if that shifted this at all. Yeah, I think that that tiny bit made it a little bit more orange. I think it could be hard for you guys to see. Oh no, I think you can see on camera the difference. And I think that that's a really, really pretty color. So I think I want to start with our mixture here. In my dye pot, I have 16 cups of water, and I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of white vinegar to start. Ideally, with the other setup, I will be starting with the same conditions, but the situation of the second color might have more vinegar in there. So I will try to pick the color I think might strike at the lower vinegar concentration. But here is our color. The yarn pre-soaked in plain tap water for at least half an hour, and we're just going to go for it and go in and move it around to try to help the color sort of distribute and strike. And you can see, wow, we've got a lot of unevenness. Things struck really, really, really fast. Wow, I think that was faster than what I was expecting. You know, we're gonna go for it. We're gonna go for it. I'll try to make sure to have things just as balled up with the next one. And I think we're gonna definitely see some breaking in here because that water that's left is yellow. Interesting. Well, by all means, this means that I should start with the pink the next time. But goodness, goodness, goodness. That was nearly instantaneous. Whew. I think that the heat of the water also made a difference. If I had added things in with it being a little bit less hot, we might have seen more coverage. But whew, that was fast. Okay, I'm going to wait, I think 10 minutes, and then we'll come check back in. All right, it has been 10 minutes. We still have a tiny amount of some pale yellow in here. Some yellow is definitely absorbed to the yarn as well. I'm gonna add 2, 3, 4 tablespoons of white vinegar and stir things up. Remember when I was at first like, oh, we'll try for a color that doesn't break. I mean, there's barely any color left in here, but I will let it go, I think, for 15 minutes just to give us a chance to absorb what's left. After 15 minutes, the color is about the same. I just checked off camera. I mean, it is almost completely clear. There's just that softest hint of yellow. Whew, things feel really hot. I'm gonna have to try to make sure that I have the system as hot next time, but we have this beautiful broken sort of orange and pale yellow colorway. I'm gonna set it to the side, and then we'll go dump this pot and reset so we can start dyeing round 2. We've reset to the new dye bath. I have 16 cups of water, and I'm adding 2 tablespoons of white vinegar. And right now, while things are still cool, I'm gonna go ahead and add our pink dye. All right, I'm gonna let this heat up, and I'm gonna try to bring it to a roiling boil like we roiling? I'm gonna try to bring it to a rolling boil like we had with the first circumstance, so it's just as hot. We're at a rolling boil. I'm trying to clear out that steam a little bit. I have wadded up the yarn like I did last time, and let's just go straight into the pink and move things around. Now, right away, there is a big difference. We're still seeing uneven color absorption like we did last time, but the color is distinctively different. This is distinctively pink versus our yellow and orange. Normally, I might have chosen to do the layering differently, to do the yellow first and then the pink. I typically like to go from like lightest to darkest color because then you can see more of a difference. But yeah, that's basically absorbed already. So I'm pretty excited about it. I will let things sit for 10 minutes before we get ready for the next round. The big reason why I like to start with the lightest color first is that if you do the lighter color second, you might not see as dramatic of a difference. But I think we may or may not see something here today with layering the yellow on top. Because this color we got from the mixture is significantly different from this pink we have right now. So anyway, I'm excited and I will be back in a little bit. Okay, I'm going to reduce the heat a little bit, but let's go and you can see that this dye bath has cleared and I need to get a different container to set this aside in. In theory, I could have placed the yarn in the exact same aluminum pan that I did for the previous round, but since there was more vinegar in that yarn, I didn't want this yarn to touch that yarn and have that shift any of our results. So I'm going to set this aside. It's not going to cool completely, but we're going to start preparing for dye round 2. Or I suppose that this is technically dye round 3. Maybe I should have called them A and B. But we still need to add our yellow to our yarn. Here's our yellow mixture. I'm going to rinse out the cup. I do think that there is a visible difference from what we had before. And I am not really going to wait. I think I want to go ahead and just place the yarn straight in. But I'm doing this in a way that the least pigmented parts are going to go in first-ish. I'm placing this in and wiggling it around. Yeah, I'm trying to help these colors distribute. I think that the yarn is all going to look really similar, but here you can now see we've got some of that more orangey red, but we also still might have some hotter pink in here depending on how the colors layer unevenly. And this project is a good example of the uneven, but therein lies the difference. If you're creating a tonal yarn and are getting some more saturated patches and some less saturated patches, and then you layer on color a second time with the same more and less saturated patches, there's going to be a difference of the amount of mixture that you have. If there's two colors, A and B, some might look like A, some might look like B, some might look like somewhere in between. Whereas if the colors are all mixed together at first, if there's breaking, you might get some variation, but otherwise some things will be more consistent in that you might have more just dark and light of one shade and not as much of the mix of hues that we are now seeing here. And we're down to that pale yellow already, which may not go in, but I'm going to heat this for 10 minutes, then we'll add more vinegar. So we'll be back. Okay, let's see. Yeah, again, we're seeing that hint of yellow. But we're still seeing more dimension in here. There's multiple hues of that reddish color. Let's add 1, 2, and a splash of vinegar. These conditions are not identical to the previous one, but the important step has already happened, and that is the layering of the colors. So I'm now going to let this sit for, I guess, 15 minutes in the hot pot, and then we'll come back. Our time is up. I am going to turn off the heat and remove our yarn. There's still a tiny bit of color in there, but it's okay. I'm going to set it aside, let things cool completely so we can go wash it. We're still waiting for things to cool, but you probably can already see the difference between the two. We've got brighter yellows, brighter pinks, and medium orange versus a paler yellow and the orange throughout the ones that we did all in one pot. Stevie Alex, I hope you are as excited as I am to see this dry. We are going to wash all 4 skeins at the same time. This might be the limit of what my hands are capable of, but I thought that it would be nice, and hopefully we won't see any bleeding, which so far, so good. I will be adding a nice healthy squirt of some clear dish soap, and we'll check for bleeding again. But if we don't see any bleeding, which we don't, I see no color coming out at all, I'm going to rinse out the soap, put the yarn through my spin dryer, and then hang it up to dry. There are a few things in this video that did not go as planned. I think that I forgot momentarily how much faster colors strike when the pot is cool when you start versus when it is really, really hot and at that boiling type temperature. We saw breaking today. We got these patches of color, which are beautiful, but the colors are much more variegated than what I originally had in my head for this project. Nevertheless, I think that we did greatly illustrate a point here. There is a huge difference between the yarn where we had all the colors mixed together and then the yarn where we did a pink layer followed by a yellow layer. In here we have 2 colors, sort of a buttery yellow and then this nice orange color. Here we have some of that butter yellow and orange, but we also have pink and the brighter yellow. Because of the unevenness that the colors bound, that allowed them to layer in different ways. So when we did our second layer, we have much more tones in here, which is honestly really, really fun. I think in the future, I want to revisit this, and I want to start with a cooler vat. I think that this video and these examples show the extreme of what can happen if you dye just with one color versus layering the colors in your dye bath. But I do think that we can, even in a more subtle case, see results that feel completely different from doing 2 steps versus 1. Now, as for how similar these colors are to one another, I'm not sure. You'd have to see when it knits up or crochets or, however you want to use it. But this is definitely a case where I would recommend alternating skeins if you want to make sure things feel consistent. Even though our color here does not look like a fluorescent lemon color, that is the color that I do want to give the credit to for the breaking that we see. Fluorescent colors in general take longer to absorb, so you do get more spread. I wouldn't expect to see much under a black light with this yarn, but I'm excited by the breaking and would want to play with this kind of combination more in the future. I think that it is always a lot of fun whenever we can create 2 different colorways using the exact same amount of dye, the exact same yarn, and ultimately a really, really similar technique. The only difference is that we split it up. In one case, we mixed the colors together before we added the yarn to the pot. In the other, we did one at a time. Stevie Alex, thank you so much for sponsoring this episode of Dyepot Weekly. I am really excited to send you the layered colorway, and I really hope that you will enjoy this colorway as much as I do. Now, as for our broken colorway that was done in one pot, this will make its way at some point into the ChemKnits Creations Etsy shop. My Etsy shop is filled with hand-dyed yarn featured in my videos. If you go to a listing, you can actually see the video title where I created it, and I do label all the skeins with the video title and date as well, so that way you can go back and watch the video while you play with the yarn. It is a great way to help support the content here on the channel and get some fun hand-dyed yarn at the same time. There'll be a link to the shop in the video description and iCard. I have so many questions when it comes to playing with color, so many ideas, so many tweaks and things that I want to try. I feel like each video I film sort of sparks the idea for 2 to 4 more video ideas. And I hope that you enjoy coming along for the ride. I publish new videos every Tuesday and Friday mornings at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. So make sure that you're subscribed to the ChemKnits Tutorials YouTube channel and have your notifications on so you never miss a new video. In addition to our regularly scheduled programming, which is really funny to kind of put it that way, but anyway, it is fairly regularly scheduled. I have been keeping up with the schedule for at least 2.5 years now. I also do live streams, unboxings, and sometimes we'll publish random bonus videos and series along the way, and you really don't want to miss any of it. I've had some questions recently about where to start if you're interested in dyeing yarn and want to go along for the journey. I have a few suggestions. One is to look at the Dyepot Weekly playlist and start from the beginning. When I started this series, I was already fairly confident with dyeing yarn with food coloring, but I was still starting to explore new techniques, and I film videos as I try things for the first time. And so towards the beginning of the series, you can see my first experiences with commercial dyes that aren't tulip tie-dye. Make sure you keep in mind that if you do want to dye yarn with food coloring, you need a protein-based fiber, wool, alpaca, silk, and the same goes for acid dyes. I do hope to put together a more get started kind of video package at some point. I have so many videos that I think something like that would be helpful. But anyway, I just wanted to share some suggestions on where I might point you if you're getting started. But I really hope that you guys enjoy my try things for the first time on camera and let you see the process unfold. And I think that if you go back and watch some of those early videos, you can see how much more confident I am now. Even when things don't work exactly the way I think they're going to work in my head, I am now feeling really comfortable with acid dyes, and it's fun that this whole journey is recorded here through Dyepot Weekly. As I said, I keep a list of video suggestions, so if there's something you really want to see, leave a comment below and let me know what it is I should think about creating in the near future. Finally, I want to wish all of you health and give you a very distant hug through the computer screen. Thank you so much for watching, everyone.